Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ABG Investor Days. My name is Adrian Gilani, and I'm an equity research analyst here at ABG. Our next presentation will be by Copperstone Resources, and with me today we have the Head of Business Development, Mikael Mattsson, who will give a 20-minute presentation, and then hopefully we will have time for some Q&A after that. With that being said, Mikael, please go ahead.
Thank you, Adrian, and welcome everyone. Copperstone Resources is a mine development company in transit to become Sweden's new miner. We have 3 assets in the table, whereof 2 are very significant. With the Viscaria mine, the former LKAB and Outokumpu mine that was closed in 96-97, with almost 100 million tons of copper-bearing rock, with a grade of almost the double of the global average, almost 1% copper in this one. And then the RVCR project, today a bit smaller. You can see here 32, including 32 million tons of copper, zinc, and silver and gold-bearing rock. But it has a significant exploration target of up to 200 million tons of copper. We are focused in the northern part of Sweden. If we look at the copper market, there is really no better place to be than in the copper, because if you look at the profitabilities in the different commodities, if you add up the gold, zinc, and the iron profits, it's actually not even close to the copper. And what we can see, and prognostic institutes also can see, and also leading banks like Goldman Sachs, for instance, is a squeeze in the short and mid-term. Because of the supply deficit, supply is struggling all over the globe, actually, with lower grades and required to go deeper into the ground, and also some political issues, both in Peru and Chile, the 2 largest nations within copper globally. So in 10 years' time, there is actually a risk or potentially in our case, 6 to 9 million tons of deficit of pure copper. And then we have to remember that we produce the world globally some 24-25 million tons of copper, and the world's largest mine is Escondida in Chile. It's a good 1 million tons. So there is a really huge demand for copper at the same time that we see a decline in the supply. And if we look at Europe, it's even worse, the situation, because over the last 10 years we have actually diminished or decreased the production from own mines in Europe. Sweden is there with the orange or yellow color. Primarily Aitik, obviously, and Kevitsa to some extent. And then it has decreased from 870 to a good just about 800,000 tons of copper. We have Spain and Poland also as large nations here. And the prognostic is that it continues. So it's below 800,000 tons of copper of these 24-25 million ton global, as I mentioned on the previous slide. And if we then look at Viscaria alone, we can add some 30,000 tons of copper, and that would actually bring back towards 800,000 tons. And at full rate, we are very proud that Viscaria would be Northern Europe's 2nd largest copper producer, runner-up to Aitik. And then we would like to show you a small video.
Copperstone Resources har i mars 2022 lämnat in en miljötillståndsansökan för att återöppna koppargruvan Viscaria i Kiruna. Gruvan ligger alldeles intill gruvbolaget LKAB och är omgiven av en infrastruktur som är optimal för gruvverksamhet. När koppargruvan stängdes 1997 bestod den då kända fyndigheten av 3 miljoner ton kopparförande berg. Men idag, 25 år och hundratals borrhål senare, är nu 93 miljoner ton kopparförande berg kartlagt och prospekteringarna kommer att fortsätta. Fyndigheten är uppdelad i 3 olika zoner och sträcker sig 4 kilometer lång och ner till minst 800 meters djup. I den gamla gruvan finns idag en mängd infrastruktur kvarlämnad. Bland annat finns 64 kilometer gruvort som kommer att restaureras och nyttjas vid återöppningen. För att kunna bryta malm i de olika zonerna kommer infrastrukturen också att behöva byggas ut. Brytningen av kopparmalmen kommer till stor del att ske under jord, men också delvis genom öppna dagbrott. Förutom att bryta kopparmalm i gruvan planerar Copperstone för att utvinna mineraler och metaller från de gamla gråbergsupplagen och sandmagasinet ovan jord. Gråberg och anrikningssand är 2 restprodukter som kommer att lagras i geomorfologiskt utformade upplag på området. Dessa kommer att efterlikna det omkringliggande landskapet och löpande täckas med morän och ett vegetationslager i syfte att underlätta för naturen att återhämta sig snabbare.
Okay, om vi dyker lite, sorry for the Swedish. If we dig into the geology a bit more, you could see similarities on the global scale actually, all over the 5 continents of the world. When you have a significant and very significant iron ore mine, not always, but sometimes and often you find a very significant copper deposit next by. It goes for Australia, South America, North America, and here, obviously, in Kiruna. LKAB mine is the world's largest underground magnetite mine. And if we look at this, we are already on the global scale with 100 million tons copper-bearing rock and almost 1 million ton of copper ore, including the historical production when they actually had a 2.3% copper grade. We are sort of aiming for 1.2% with larger tonnage. And you see I tick down there to the right. It's actually a logarithmical scale, so that we have 4 or 5 times the grade. It doesn't show on this one. Neither does their billion ton sort of porphyry in Gällivare because of the scale here. They have some 3 or 4 billion tons, including historical production. And we see that very much so that the more we explore, the more we find resource-wise, which it should be, since it's open at depth and along strike. And regarding the exploration at Viscaria, we have data from 400,000 meters of core drillings, primarily from the mine. You can see the first column here, that's Outokumpu primarily, and also LKB, a good 200,000 from production drilling and grade control drilling at those times. But then Sandstone and Avalon took over in the mid-2000s, 2008, and they have drilled 54, and we are now second on the at the Viscaria site with 59,000 meters, which is 150 million SEK investment, which we think is really good bang for the buck, so to speak. And in the short term, we see, as you also saw in the video, we see from the A and B zones, we have a plan for the open pits, and then the D zone and underground primarily. Just to give a feeling for the potential and the quality of this asset, all the way to the left here, you can see the old stopes from the old mining. And we are planning an open pit on this one, and A zone it's called. And it's done every day globally, so say globally in global mining. But it's not sort of very simple, because you have all these underground stopes and tunnels, 65 kilometers of old working, so you have to be careful. And this is also why we have only included 13 out of 25 million ton mineral resource, potential mineral reserve from this zone. And I was very astonished when we acquired this one from Australian company Sandstone 4 years ago, that they hadn't even included this A zone in the 9 years life of mine at that time. And you can see here right all the way to the left, 6.5 meters with more than 3% copper just laying there waiting. And if we can, this is at 600 meter depth. And if we compare this to other base metal discoveries or deposits in the Nordic region, like Pyhäsalmi, Garpenberg, and Zinkgruvan, they are mining profitably at 13, even 1400 meters. So this is a really bright future. But we have now started to include it in the later part of our 15-year life of mine. Gold, silver, and cobalt are confirmed in the system, but we have not confirmed potential for economic extraction or the byproducts. It really depends on if we need to do more investments in the flotations. For instance, cobalt is in pyrite in this case, gold potentially in the copper concentrate, but then we also have we may have some pollutions or other substances, so we don't really know yet. And then if you look at the growth again in the video, once again, 3 million ton at the time of Outokumpu. This is actually from the Outokumpu annual report, end of 95, this figure. And then it has grown, first with Sandstone Avalon drilling these 54 kilometers core drillings, and then we took over. And it was very successful, unprecedented, the first 10,200 meters in the D zone. And then we have the resource upgrade, only the D zone, and it increased by 22 million ton, you can see there, from 52 to 74, and more than 100,000 tons of copper for an investment of 20-30 million SEK, something like this. And then it has continued, and Jörgen Olsson came in here end of 2019 as our new chairman, and we have funded and we have drilled all the way. I would say the last 12 months, primarily close to the mine, of course, with the PFS coming up, pre-feasibility to go to banks, etc. So this is not why we have increased so much sort of the scope, but the exploration target is there, both in the short and the mid-term. And if we look at the mine design, we have been into this, and again, you saw it in the video. This is Glenn Nilsson, 30 years as the head of mining at Boliden. He's our mining manager. And for him, everything is gold here, and it's just gold mine, no problem, no problem. But then when you discuss with the mining engineers, maybe not so simple, but I put my bet on Glenn in this case, but it has to be scrutinized and everything. So it's such a perfect team here, both the analysts and the practical sort of, he really sees into the 3D model of the mountain or the rock and exactly knows where to go, and this is going to be 11 and 11 and just blast it and take it. And as we mentioned here, the D zone, potentially not an open pit. We have applied for it in the environmental permit, but we might actually go directly underneath because it's higher grade, best magnetite and best copper grades. And this is also, yes, exactly what I told you. Now the D zone has a recovery of 90 to 95%, which is amazing in the copper industry. When we bought it, we knew that preliminary tests in Australia was 94, 95, even 96%, but we have not been able to replicate exactly that. But the concentrate grade is also very important on the left here, and that's 25 to 32. And the historical mine had some 23, 24% copper, and it was a perfect quality. So we have, we are really happy with these figures. The old mine had 90% year after year 90 to 95 with Outokumpu, and we have replicated that and even more, 88 to 95. And the B zone, which has never been mined in the deep, actually, only on open pit a bit, it's 80 to 90%, which is also decent. And then if we look at the magnetite, we are focusing on the D zone because the copper is hosted in the magnetite there. And we have reached 69 to 71% grade, and then all know that the theoretical maximum is like 72 plus minus a decimal. So it's really world class. The only problem here is that it might be some copper atoms, so that we are now sort of discussing what kind of offtake can we have directly with other iron ore mine or steel works. But definitely if you dilute it with huge volumes, it should not, in my view, be an issue. But it's really fantastic. It's produced and will fall down to the bottom of the flotation, and the copper bubbles and the gold bubbles will come up. So it's produced simultaneously with the copper. Sustainability, of course, this is the new world order of mining. And we have reached even 97 to 99% of the water to be cleaned from the old mine. So we have stated, and we are very clear with this, that we will improve the water quality for humans and for animals in this region when we open this mine. It will be tough for the RVCR project or any other mine in the Skellefteå field to open after this, if it's going to be the best applicable technology. But hopefully it's sort of local. This is the Kiruna region now that we are talking. Over your time plan, this is not so much new, but to show the enormous amount of work streams in parallel. It all starts with the mineral resource and the exploration and the geology. This is really the bucket wheat or the flour in the bakery. Without it, we cannot bake any bread. And then we have the metallurgy. That's also the tick in the box that we showed. Processing design, this is Tove Thelin Tekdal that is responsible for the procurement and buying the right equipment at the right timing. This is really the major part of the Capex. And the mining, you saw Glenn on the picture. Infrastructure and logistics, we have actually built a bridge over the E10 to get ready when the environmental permit hopefully comes. And that investment actually, it came 4 years. The initial timetable was like 2026, but we finished it in September last year, 22. And financials, probably you have heard our CEO, Henrik Ager, going through this, and we have increased it from 9 years to 15 years life of mine now. And not so much new here. The Capex is still there with some cost inflation, so we have sort of raised it, not for this presentation, but the last couple of months, raised it 500 million or something. 60% still target as a project financing for states and EU maybe, debt from banks. And the production of 3 million tons per year, which together with 1% copper will be approximately 30,000 tons of copper. One word on the average grade here. I know that some people thought, oh wow, didn't you say 1.10, 1.15% earlier? But that was really in the 9 years case, 10 years case life of mine. So if you compare apples to apples, I wouldn't say that we have decreased. That's my firm opinion. It's rather that we high grade to get early cash flow on. And if we would see a copper price of say 12 or even 13, $14,000 per ton when we open, of course we want to take the best parts as soon as possible and just amortize debt and be ready for the future. We are very proud that the cash cost is still below $4,000, which is competitive in the world. It's not super low in any sense, but for a mid-sized copper mine like this one, it's quite decent actually. And the net profit is still at 850 despite the increase in interest rates. Finally, 2 slides more, and this is the RVCR. And this is where we came from. As I mentioned, we acquired Viscaria in 2019 from Sunstone, ASX listed company. And at that time we had 280, but that's sort of to show that we were able to find that quality of Viscaria. But we haven't focused so much on RVCR, but we are behind the scene, we are developing it as well. And we have had a very successful geophysical conductive anomaly campaign here last year, which is ledningsförmåga. As you know, the copper and gold are really good conductors. Not like graphite or silver, but apart from that, it's really copper in electrical cars and windmills and what have you. So this is really exciting stuff, and as soon as we have more financing and also the team, it's management and geology team that we need to go, we will develop this one as well. If you look at the exploration target that I mentioned, 200 million tons only on Granliden, the northern part, it could be a Viscaria size on this one, but it will be required significant investments to prove this and to convert it into resources. So we should not sort of compare apples with pears, but just to get a feeling. And this is the last slide. It's the cap table where we have fantastic investors, hopefully for the long term, we believe it, qualified investors, and also heartwarming that more than 800 shareholders only in Kiruna out of 23,000 inhabitants. So we feel fantastic support for this project. And the cash almost 1 billion SEK at the end of the last quarter. That, Adrian, I think was the last slide. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your presentation. We'll go straight ahead with some questions. And first of all, perhaps in the near term, the most important thing for you is to get the environmental permit. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk a bit about the process from today, what you need to do before you get that permit? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as we mentioned, again in the video, we handed it in March 2022 after 2 years and some 50-60 million SEK investment with water consultants and our own team. And then it has been complemented, or we have had discussions with the court 3 times actually. So we feel that we are really ready for the proclamation that has been confirmed, but not officially, so to speak, in the diarium. So this is why we have informed the market that it's on its way. And after that, it will be yttrandeperioder. I don't know the English word on this one, but it's normally it's 8 weeks back and forth with all the stakeholders, landowners, and actually the general public are also allowed to do that. But of course, the court will not focus so much attention on these, the latter category, but definitely on the stakeholders. And then we know, and we will also at the same time discuss the timetable for a main negotiation. This is how it works. And if it's going to be this winter or before or after the year end, we don't know. But as soon as the negotiation is maybe 1 or 2 weeks at site, mostly, then there will be a decision and dom, usually 4 or maybe 6 weeks later.
And what would you say are the major risks for getting the environmental permit or getting a postponed process, and how are you sort of working to mitigate those risks?
Yeah, of course, we are mitigating all the time as much as we can, apart from meddling or interfering with courts and with sort of county administration and authorities. But we try to inform people and have a dialogue. That's the best way, definitely, in all parts. So we invite for a dialogue, and we have meetings, and we have, I mean, it has been handled very, very well, I think, and I have never been worried 1 single minute with Anders Lundqvist's team on this one.
Okay. And while that permit process is going on, obviously there's a lot of downtime waiting for the court's responses. What are you doing between or in addition to just the permit process at the moment?
Yeah, currently we are drilling with 6 rigs actually in Viscaria. And we are planning for an RVCR campaign, but it has not been confirmed that we will move sort of a rig there. But we are now also regionally, so not any longer only the feasibility drillings along to increase from inferred to indicated or measured category to get it into reserve base. This is just sort of paperwork. You need to drill this close to holes rather than this one to know where to open the mine, so that independent technical consultants can sign off, and then the bank can loan. So everything is like a domino game here in a sense. But we are now very proud that we are regionally now drilling currently underneath LKAB tailings, 350 meters below their tailings of 70 meters, 100 meters waste, because we have the exploration permit there, and we hope for copper or magnetite down there, but we'll see. I mean, it's a long way to have a new mine there, but we are going north now to explore even more and extend and apply for more exploitation concessions and increase the life of mine all the way.
Yeah. And last year you did give us a mineral update on the recent drilling results. Are you planning on giving any such update this year as well? When can we expect the next mineral update?
I would expect it somewhere along with the PFS actually, and you saw the timetable, and probably the presentation will be online as well, so you can find out for yourself. But it's very logical that you have something like this when you go for the banks and the PFS feasibility study. That, in my view, but it hasn't been exactly decided what date. It's really when you have a campaign, you want to get all the data and get the block model in place, and then you start planning for the timing.
Okay, and one final question from my end. You talked about your low carbon footprint in relation to the other mines. Is this something you see customers over time being willing to pay more for, this green copper, so to say? And
that's a very good question. And we, of course, we hope for a premium on this copper concentrate. Europe really needs it because we import 50% of the copper in this continent. So definitely, and there are discussions. Can it be like steel, 10 to 12%? Maybe not premium at the beginning, but we know Boliden is there and really working in the frontier, and that's really appreciated, and we want to join them on this because it should be a premium in my view.
Okay, and with that being said, I'd just like to thank you again for your presentation and for answering all of my questions, and I'll leave it up to you if you have some final remarks before we round off.
Thanks, Adrian. No, actually not. I think it was very nice to be here. Thank you for coming.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.